You want to open a bed and breakfast? Find out what it's all about. Coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at the Fox 43 studio in Myrtle Beach. We're focused on the South Carolina Bed and Breakfast Association, and we're visiting with its immediate past president, Jim Ruddick. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Greg.
Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
It is so exciting all week to think we've been leading up to the South Carolina Bed and Breakfast Association and to finally get you in. You know, it was amazing. Not too long ago, maybe about 5 years ago, I guess, we were out at the Cypress Inn. Leadership Grand Strand was out there doing, I don't remember what.
Well, I believe you were there just touring Conway, part of the leadership package to see local communities, and the city of Conway asked if you could meet here at the inn, or meet at the inn, and we said sure. And I think that's where I first met you.
I think that's exactly right. I remember I was trying to remember why we were there, but I remember it was an amazing experience. And
well, I think you had some of the city leaders come talk to you there.
That's right.
Because for some reason, I think their conference room at the city might have been booked, so they asked if they could meet here. And, you know, what better group to have meet at your inn than the leadership group, because that's a great group.
That's exactly right. Now, does the Conway Chamber of Commerce have a leadership group as well, Leadership Conway?
They do the same thing, yes. Yeah. You know, I've always wanted to do that, but especially with the Myrtle Beach one, you have to give up a weekend and spend a weekend away. And in the inn business, we're just not able to do that, so I haven't been able to commit to that.
You and Carol stay pretty dang active during the week and the weekends in particular.
Well, that's the nature of the business.
Right.
It's 24/7. You're going when people are playing, you're working.
Yeah.
So you just got to get used to that and accept it and work around it.
That is amazing, Jim. What is it in your youth or in your middle age, or what prompted you to have that inkling in you to be?
We're probably different than a lot of people in the way we got into it. We have a lot of couples that stay with us and say, you know, we've always dreamed about doing this, and we're going to do this someday. And we never did that. Carol and I stayed in bed and breakfast, and then one day we stayed in one in the North Georgia mountains, and that inn was for sale. And the owner sat down with us at breakfast, because we were the only guest, and talked to us about buying his inn. And, of course, we weren't interested in buying that particular inn. But we left there, and we both looked at each other and said, do you think you'd like to do this? And I said, yeah. And Carol said, yeah, I think so. That happened to be in October of some given year.
Right.
And in January, so 3 months later, we went down to Amelia Island and took a 3-day seminar on So You Want to Own a Bed and Breakfast. And then we walked away from that saying, I think we really want to do this. So there was really no history of us wanting to get into the business. It was just a single question: would you like to buy my inn?
Right.
That started it, and here we are today.
Wow.
And it took us probably 4 years from that day to actually get to the point where we found Conway and decided to build the inn.
And how about just finding Conway? What about that experience? How did you all land to figure out that great location at 16 Elm was going to be the place? And, of course, our focus is on the South Carolina Bed and Breakfast Association, but we got to learn a little bit about you and the Cypress Inn.
Well, I got involved with Conway through the Bed and Breakfast Association. It was started 10 years ago, and it was worked on pretty closely with PRT, Parks, Recreation, and Tourism, which is part of the South Carolina state divisions, I guess. And so I called them, because we were looking in Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina. I called them because they were involved with the Bed and Breakfast Association and said, you know, I'm looking for a bed and breakfast. Do you have any ideas? Are there any for sale that you know about? Can you show me around? And because I got involved in that, Conway was involved with PRT because I believe they were working with a grant with them for their Riverwalk. And they heard that this couple from Atlanta were looking at bed and breakfast in South Carolina, so they actually contacted us.
Wow.
It was part of their vision with the Riverwalk to have commercial development down there, and one of the things they always thought about was that maybe a bed and breakfast would fit well down there.
Yeah.
So they sent us a letter and said, would you be interested in coming to Conway to look? And quite honestly, we had never heard of Conway. I had been to Myrtle Beach once before to play golf, you know, like college days, but I didn't know anything about Conway, and frankly didn't know that much about Myrtle Beach other than golf. And we came and looked, and at the time, we were not interested in building one. So we said, thanks, but no thanks. We'd rather buy an existing inn, turnkey operation, pay the guy on Friday, he gives you the key Friday night, and Saturday you've got a house full of guests.
Yeah.
So we said no, and we kept looking and looking, and about a year and a half later, we said, geez, it's tough to find one that will really fit our parameters. Maybe we ought to look back at Conway, and we did. They were still interested, and we got started then.
That's amazing. And you all built it from the ground up.
Yeah. And back then, when we started this, it was about 10 years ago. There really weren't that many that were being built from the ground up. I found something over the weekend that said the average age of a dwelling of a typical bed and breakfast around the country is 103 years old.
Wow.
So when we started, we were 3 months old. Yeah. And but that's nice plumbing, electricals, all clean,
all intact.
Yeah, so that was good. So there really was no plans. There was no guidelines to look at to build the typical inn. So we pretty much did what we wanted, and we were not trying to build a period home, a Victorian or something of that nature. We did. We just wanted to make it feel comfortable. We don't want people to think they're coming into our home, but we do want them to get a homey feel.
That's good words. We don't want people to think they're coming into our home. You mean like invading our home?
Correct. Yeah.
We instead want them to get a homey feel.
That's right.
More importantly, that's
right.
Great. Those are good words. Is that indicative of all? I mean, is that a mantra of the South Carolina Bed and Breakfast Association?
No, I think ours is different in the way our building is set up. It doesn't look like an old home. So you're generally not going to get that feeling, and I think that was just what we wanted. Most bed and breakfasts in South Carolina probably fit the profile of a 103-year-old home, and so you do realize you're going into their home.
Are there any? What are some of the other bed and breakfasts in, let's say, Horry and Georgetown County? What are some things that folks would be aware of? Is there? Do you get to visit in your position as immediate past president or now as vice president of the association? Do you travel around and visit other bed and breakfasts, let's say in the PD or?
Well, my position now as vice president is membership.
Okay.
So
you do.
Yes. When we have new members that are interested in joining the association, we have to go out and inspect them and approve them. Yeah. Because part of the benefits of being in the association are that the inns are inspected and approved. I mean, there are close to 19,000 inns throughout the country. And that's an awful lot of inns. Now, you think about a hotel, if you go to a Marriott, what to expect. You go to a Best Western, what to expect. With the bed and breakfast, you really don't know. And one of the things that we as an association are trying to do is really brand our business. And being a member of an association like a state association helps to do that because it says these are all of a certain quality. Not that they're all the same, because that's the beauty of a bed and breakfast, they're all different. But they've all passed some pretty good inspection criteria. They offer good hospitality. And you can be assured that you're going to have a good quality visit when you go to visit one of these inspected and approved inns of the South Carolina Bed and Breakfast Association.
And how many of the inns within the state are inspected and approved or are members of the South Carolina Bed and Breakfast Association?
According to the PRT website, there are 178 inns throughout the state, of which 83 are members of the association. So if you're looking for an inn, not to say that if they're not in the association doesn't mean they're not a good inn.
Right.
But chances are you're going to find better quality inns within the association than outside the association. As an example, you're familiar with AAA. There are 19 four-diamond AAA establishments in the state, 5 of which are bed and breakfasts. So that's 25%, a quarter of them are bed and breakfast. Of those 5, 4 are members of our state association. So that means those 4 are looking for their quality properties, looking to be in a quality organization. So we're real pleased with that. I'd love to get that 5th one so we can get 100% of the 4-diamond properties.
Right. What is the significance of a 4-diamond property? What exactly is that, Jim? We hear that all the time, and of course there's the hotel, the Myrtle Beach, the Radisson Plaza Hotel, Myrtle Beach Convention Center, which recently got that designation, and I guess they're following on a 5 or 6 year on your heels, having had that designation for quite a while. I know one of the other hotels in Myrtle Beach Marriott Resort's working hard to try to make sure they can get that designation. What's the significance of it?
Well, generally, the top 3% of all the hotels in the world or in the country, I'm not sure which, reach that level. And it's a combination of the service that you provide and the amenities and the physical aspects of the property. So you have to be both a quality property from a physical standpoint, but probably more importantly, you have to give the service.
Great service.
Yeah, the service is a real important part of it. And what they do, AAA will make a reservation with you unannounced. They'll actually view or review the way you handled the phone. How did you handle the reservation? Did you send them out a confirmation letter? What was the presentation of the confirmation letter? They'll spend the night, and when they leave, they then tell you, by the way, I was a AAA inspector. So during their time there, they're looking at how did you greet them? Did you greet them by name? Did you introduce them to other guests? If they had any issues, did you take care of them? As an example, I've heard of one inn that the inspector, who the innkeeper did not know, they were the inspector, asked about a wake-up call in the morning. And the person said, well, we have an alarm in the room. And they were told after the fact that the appropriate answer should have been, I will set a wake-up call. What time would you like it?
Right.
As opposed to, you do it yourself.
Yeah.
And there's been other inns that I've heard of that haven't had great phone service. So when the inspector calls up and they're not treated warmly and hospitably, their rating reflects that.
Wow.
So part of it is you want the public to know that you are a quality product. Again, not to say if you're not one, you're not a quality product, but if they know you're Four Diamond, there's, I say there's 19 of them in the state, so there's really not that many. I know you're one of the select few.
And the AAA ratings are for both bed and breakfast, inns, hotels, motels, everything.
That's right. But about 10 years ago, they revised their hotel guidelines to add bed and breakfast. So now they have a separate inspection criteria for bed and breakfast, because it didn't make sense to do some of the things that they required hotels to do for bed and breakfast. It just didn't fit our profile. So we worked with them as an association, not as a state association, but as a national association. We worked with them to come up with criteria that fit a bed and breakfast.
That's exciting. Now, does the South Carolina Bed and Breakfast Association have you said the website is essentially through PRT?
No, our website is southcarolinabedandbreakfast.com.
Okay, right.
And we developed that a few years ago. Over the years, what we started with was what everyone had. It was a print directory. And back then, it was a black and white directory with pictures or sometimes sketches of the inns with a little description about their rates, about the owners. And about 5 years ago, we went to a color directory. And then, I guess 5 years as well, we went to our website. And predominantly, that's where people go to find inns. Yeah, we have found that our best visitors to the state of South Carolina are from North Carolina and Georgia. They're the neighboring states. And I know with our particular inn, people aren't that concerned about where they go. They live in Raleigh, for example. They want to go within a 3-hour drive. They could go to Virginia, they could go to North Carolina, or they go to South Carolina.
Right.
And the state site is a good site for them to look at because it doesn't narrow the focus to a particular inn or a particular city.
Right.
They go to the state, pull up a state map, look at all the different cities where we have bed and breakfast, and say, well, that's a good drive, I can do that, or that's too far, let's not look there. And then they just start hunting inns. And if they find an inn in a city that sounds like it has some things to do because they want to come and have a good meal and have a nice place to sleep and have a good breakfast the next morning. And many of them are not looking to do anything, anything special. It's just a quiet getaway with their spouse or significant other and a place to just unwind.
Do you all have a website? Do you and Carol have a website?
Absolutely, yeah.
What is that?
That's the name of our inn is Cypress Inn, and we couldn't get that, so we added an A in front of it. So it's acypressinn.com.
Oh, yeah.
Which we have found out helped us when you list websites alphabetically.
Right, good point.
The A works well.
Oh, that's
for us.
good. That works well.
There's an inn in Monterey, California that has that website.
Cypressinn.com.
Yeah. And we've gotten a lot of calls from people in California thinking they're calling us, thinking they're calling the California Inn.
No.
And where are you from? Oh, we're from San Francisco. Well, how are you getting here? We're driving. Well, when are you leaving? Oh, we'll be leaving this afternoon. And then we finally said, where do you think we are located?
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
So you all have an 800 number then.
Oh, yeah. They don't,
Right.
they don't
have
know.
no idea.
They don't
That's
know.
hilarious. That's great. acypressinn.com. Well, that's wonderful. Well, of course, how about yourself, Jim? Are you originally from the area? Are you originally from Atlanta, or is that...
Well, I was born in New England. I was born in Massachusetts,
Right.
as well as was Carol, up in upstate New York. And we actually met at my brother's wedding.
Oh, wow.
My brother married Carol's cousin.
Huh.
And we met. I was living in Atlanta at the time. Carol was living in California.
Yeah.
So we dated cross-country for a while. And then she moved to Atlanta. I was in Atlanta for 20 years, so we were...
Is that right?
And then from Atlanta is how we found Conway.
Mm-hmm. I think I saw your undergraduate degree came from school in Massachusetts, but then you went on to get an MBA at Temple.
That's right.
So you and Carol both had, as you said, other lives well before
that's
setting up Cypress Inn.
Yeah, I did retirement planning,
Uh-huh.
and Carol worked at a bank.
There in Atlanta.
Yeah, in Atlanta, right, yeah. And I'm sure she worked for MBNA.
Oh, yeah.
You may carry one of her credit cards. Or
I don't, but a heck of a lot of folks
people
do. They're out of, Delaware or something.
That's right,
Yeah.
Yeah, which is actually where I spent most of my childhood, in Wilmington, Delaware.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Do you, when you look back now at your childhood, do you think there was anything in your childhood that helped set the stage for now being at the Cypress Inn?
Well, my first job was a dishwasher for the Woolworths cafeteria.
Really? Yeah.
And I do a lot of washing of dishes now, and that did not set me up. That was not a job that you liked. Yeah. The cooks there didn't treat you real kindly.
Oh no! Was this in Massachusetts?
No, this was in Delaware.
Oh, this was in Delaware. Yeah.
So that was my first job. But I had a lot of jobs growing up, but I enjoyed most of them. And as I said, it was just a funny freak thing where this innkeeper asked us if we want to buy his property. That got us started. We really hadn't thought about it.
That is amazing. That is amazing. But of course you had some affinity towards inns or towards bed and breakfast. Well, what's the difference, real quick, Jim, between an inn and a bed and breakfast? Is that...
Well, it's hard to say today. Traditionally, the rule was at an inn you serve a meal other than breakfast, or in addition to breakfast, the dinner meal. And a bed and breakfast was generally just the breakfast meal.
That.
Yeah. But today, we are called the Cypress Inn. We don't serve a meal other than breakfast. It's really hard to say. It's so fluid right now. You can't really define what the difference is. So the public will understand.
Right. Now, are most bed and breakfasts owned by a couple like yourself, or are there any that are owned like by, let's say, does Ritz-Carlton have a chain of bed and breakfast or inns, or is it almost exclusively
predominantly it's
couples?
It's couples
Or persons.
Yeah. And you see now where some of the corporations, couples form corporations and they might own 2 or 3 of them. But I think for the most part, the traditional mom and pop ownership, where they own it and work and live there, is predominant. It's we live at our inn. We enjoy living there. I think it would be tough for us and our guests if we didn't live there. Part of the enjoyment is living there and being there with the guests.
Yeah, it's tough to get away from work, though, Jim. But you like that.
Yeah, but Greg.
Yeah.
Think of this now. In the morning, my commute is like 2 feet.
The stairwell.
And then in the afternoon, it's another 2 feet.
How many rooms do y'all have at the Cypress Inn?
We have 12 rooms.
12 rental rooms, right?
That's correct. And then
rent.
we have a what you call a mini apartment where we live, and it gets smaller and smaller as we use it to store stuff for the inn.
Sure, that's right.
I don't know where to put this. Oh, put it in our room.
Yeah. Oh God, Jim, you and Carol, that's amazing. And of course, what you all have been able to do, and of course, a day like today, Friday, is a pretty hectic day.
Yeah, getting ready for the weekend, because that's busy. Now, we do a lot of business travelers, and that's a trend of bed and breakfast. Well, when you think about it, there's 2 weekend days in a week, but there's 5 weekdays. So the typical leisure traveler travels on weekends. There's only 2 of those, and there's 5 of the others, so you need to fill up those other 5.
Yeah.
And one of the ways to do that is with business travelers, because they're the ones that travel Sunday through Thursday nights. So bed and breakfast in general are really going after the corporate market. But to do that, they had to make some changes. And some of the changes are they have to be business friendly. They've got to have phones in the rooms. They've got to have TVs in the rooms. Today they've got to have internet hookup.
Right.
And a lot of business people actually want high speed hookup in the rooms. They've got to have flexible check-in and check-out times. They've got to have flexible cancellation policies. Most inns today will have a cancellation policy of 5 days or 7 days in advance. You can't do that with a business person. Or you can, you just won't have many stay with you. So they've had to be a little bit more flexible with that. The breakfast, some of the breakfasts at inns are a little bit later in the morning. You can't do that with a business traveler generally. You've got to do it early in the morning, or offer it early if they need it. Women business travelers are really major supporters of bed and breakfast. They like the safety of it, the security of it. It's nice to know someone else is in there with you, especially if they come back to that area on an ongoing basis, because then they get a chance to know the innkeeper. It's like they're staying with a friend.
Right.
And they feel much safer than if they stayed at a hotel. Particularly the hotels that have the outside entrances where you enter in from the parking lot as opposed to off a main lobby and a central hallway. They just feel much more secure with that. And the men are finding them to be different than hotels, because as you know, if you stay in a lot of hotels, it's difficult for you to tell what's the difference between this city and that city, because the hotel you're staying in looks the same. But at a bed and breakfast, it gives you just a more of a sense of home. And if you travel a lot, you really miss home.
Yeah, that's a vital experience. That's important. And now that must be kind of a mantra of the South Carolina Bed and Breakfast Association.
What we try to do is provide Southern hospitality to all of our guests. And if you are hospitable to guests, it's incredible how they pay you back, and they come back. They make you feel good. You may not get paid much as an innkeeper, but the sense of making other people happy is really quite good. We had a guest send us a letter this past year where they stayed with us a year ago, and just one weekend, and it was the last time he and his wife got away together, because 6 months later she died. And he thought enough about our stay that he wrote to us and said that he really appreciated all we did to make that last weekend together special. And at some point he wants to come back and visit with us, because that's such a good memory that he had. And when you get that, it chokes you up.
Makes it all worth it.
Yeah,
that's right. That's right.
Wow, and you think back, what did we do? And you really didn't do anything
other than what you always do.
Yeah, right. And that's nice to know that you can have a positive effect on people like that.
That is, Jim. When you sit back and think about, of course, talking about Southern hospitality, you growing up in Delaware or born in Massachusetts, your wife in upstate New York, she coming from California. Of course, you've been in Atlanta a long time.
Right.
A lot of work's gone into really having a firm grasp of Southern hospitality is indicative of a lot of folks, but you all have taken it to another level.
Well, what you try to do is anticipate their needs. Figure out what they want before they actually ask for it, but you don't want to be intrusive.
Yeah.
If they want to be left alone and have a private evening, then that's what you need to do. But be there when they need you. With our guests, we have phones in all the rooms, so they're able to. We tell them any number of times, if you need anything, don't move, just lean over, dial the phone, and we'll come up and take care of whatever you need.
Wow.
Just to make it easy on them and make their stay more enjoyable. And each inn in our association, any inn in the country, does it a way that's comfortable for them.
Yeah.
That's the thing with innkeeping. It is such a demanding job. You have to do what is comfortable for you. You have to be yourself. It's hard if you have to act out being hospitable. You're going to get tired of that if you do it 24 hours a day, if it's not part of your natural being.
Speaking of that, Jim, if you and Carol weren't operating Cypress Inn, what do you think you all would be doing?
Well, I would probably do probably the same thing I was doing, retirement planning. I enjoyed that. I traveled a fair amount with that. I was out of the Atlanta regional office, and we traveled throughout the Southeast. I really enjoyed doing that. Now, Carol, on the other hand, she likes to change jobs a lot. She's done a lot of different things, and there's no telling what she'd be doing. There's no telling. Now, she actually, when she first moved to Atlanta, she wrote 2 books.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, for the adult literacy program, and just really enjoyed doing that, and self-published them and did a real good job.
2 Northerners who've now made Southern hospitality indicative in everything they do. Golly, here, almost 10 years now, to think of the excitement. The immediate past president of the South Carolina Bed and Breakfast Association working so hard to instill Southern hospitality and hospitality in general in everyone. Jim, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Greg, thank you. It's my pleasure.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People coming up next. We want to thank Jim Ruddick and his amazing wife, Carol, for working so hard, not only at the Cypress Inn, but with the South Carolina Bed and Breakfast Association, for making anyone's trip to the area a special one. Visit them online at acypressinn.com.